Right, YouTube. This is going to be a video on pretty much just news stories. What my opinion of news stories is. Mostly, what I would say is a more liberal take. These are all stories from a conservative website or what they're worried about or concerned with, and I want to show you how nonsensical it is and how it's doing much the opposite of what I'm doing. And really, many of their viewpoints are absolute nonsense. And I want to give you more of an authentic, what would be have been a classical almost, not and that's a bit of a controversial or complicated terminology to use, a bit of terminology there to use, but more or less a classical liberal perspective on that and how I disagree with them. So let's get started. First, as always, I almost forgot. I also want to say I haven't really been drinking much today, and that's probably part of the reason why this video is already kind of awkward and getting off to a slow start. And I haven't really seen anything other than maybe one or two things. I haven't seen anything new or anything on that page that was new or anything. And the news that is new that I really care about or that incredibly passionate about that isn't like old news. And even the thing I did care about was very old news. But also I haven't been drinking. And part of the reason this is one going into detail as to why I haven't made a video sooner. And this will be a long video, so I got plenty of time to talk about that. But last night at around, 3 o'clock at night, somewhere around then, before that I went to sleep and I got up and I wasn't up long, I started getting cold, kind of sick. I guess I got a touch of the flu. I don't think it was a hangover, even though I drink enough, you would think it was probably that. But that one reason I haven't been on here more is because of I was sick for whatever reason. So with that said, I just wanted to say that's the reason I've not made a video before now. But I didn't say I was going to make a video, so hey, who cares? Listen. Alright, I don't know. Anyways, getting to the point. Okay, I'm going to start with this because why not? And I've talked about this issue before, but Democrats want to let me get a drink while I'm thinking about this one. I'm not too sure. Throw me off actually. Look at it. This is the issue with that. So you're saying, first of all, anyone that knows anything about transgender people, as I've said before, transgender people take estrogen. And if you're taking estrogen, you are no longer at the same advantage that a normal man would be. You are essentially decreasing testosterone and upping your amount of estrogen. And you are often testosterone deficient, or you have a deficiency, hormonal deficiency having to do with testosterone, is to where women would have more testosterone than a transgender male in many cases, and that's the issue. And they are supposed to be recognized as being female. They are now part of the female gender, so they should be competing. If we're talking about male to female at least, so they should be able to compete against a biological female. There's no reason not to. Now, what you are saying, what you would rather have us do, is far more offensive and messed up, and unfair to the transgender person. And because you're saying one of two things, essentially, and I'm not sure what one is worse. Because you either one saying that a transgender person who is on estrogen, who is in some cases smaller than a woman, and some of these women, or transgender women, rather look better than some biological women. I have seen porn star models who are transgender, and they look, in some cases, more feminine than the women do, and they're often, and some of them are smaller, and like I said, they're not at an advantage. But even saying they are at an advantage, what's worse, having them be at a slight advantage over a female, maybe having a little bit of an advantage, or them having to continue to play male sports and compete against men or males who are in some cases on steroids, or they're taking some kind of testosterone blocker or medication designed to decrease estrogen, or not testosterone, but but estrogen blocker designed to decrease estrogen. And while these people are taking estrogen trying to be transgender, these other fucking people are doing just the exact opposite in order to get complete advantage. And you're more or less sending people out there to compete in these what could be full contact sports against people far larger than them. And how is that not essentially the same as throwing a woman out there with a guy? I mean, it's essentially the same thing. So that's offensive to me, and I would imagine to transgender people. And or you're saying either do that, you're either saying do that, or you're saying that transgender people just should not be able to compete in sports. And that is a pretty major part or significant chapter of our culture, and very popular, and people know who these people are, and they become famous, and that's one way people have of making a lot of money, and so on and so forth, is sporting events or sports in this country. And it's a big part of the market, the free market, is buying sports tickets and things like that. So you're saying that they shouldn't be able to do that at all, and that's really what you're saying ultimately. But either way, again, imagine trying to say females shouldn't be able to play sports or play in a sport. You would call that misogyny. You would go ape shit. You would lose your mind. But you could say the same thing about females. But you would say the same thing about females if they're transgender. And also, aren't what you're saying, if you think about what you're saying, what about female to male? What is your excuse for why they shouldn't play against men? Because certainly, if they're becoming men, they're taking testosterone. They probably shouldn't play. They probably shouldn't continue to play against the females, because that would be a disadvantage for females. But now you're saying they can't compete against men. So for what? Why? So you can protect them from themselves. You can protect the transgender people in that case from themselves. So then, aren't you really, if you're talking about female to male, aren't you really doing the same thing you always accuse socialist governments of doing? One, overly regulating a part of the society, often having to do with people making choices, and it's largely a recreational activity, and you're wanting the government to get involved. And two, you're protecting the citizens from themselves, and you're trying to take care of them almost like they're children. Well, that doesn't work either. So any way you look at this, either way, it's wrong. And again, if I hate saying this, but if you're going to be that way about it, or if you want to look at things like that, then if females if females are that untalented, supposedly, and that incapable or unfit to play a sport, that they're literally running from transgender people, maybe you shouldn't watch fucking female sports if it's that way. I mean, that's pretty damn bad. And again, don't say that's misogyny, because you don't give a damn about the fucking transgender people that wouldn't be able to play at all, or even worse than that, potentially, is having to play against men who are much larger than them. So that's wrong. And I spent too long on that. Let's get on to the next one. California rodents. Supposedly rodents are taking over California. Supposedly, according to this website, they're becoming a huge menace. And for once, they're not talking about politicians. But speaking of politicians, I can't speak on California, but I do know that my father went to Washington, D.C. once, and he told me, or he used to tell people, that they had rodents there in California that lived there that were as big as a dog, a small fucking dog. Not, let's say Washington, D.C. I think they were as big as a dog in Washington, D.C. And I've heard people talk about massive sewer rats in New York. New York City, for example, and they even had like a Monster Crest episode that was about giant rodents. I think it was Monster Crest on History Channel. So there are definitely some weird shit out there. And there are a lot of rats in this country of different kinds, human rats and real rats. I mean, you know. So let's see what else. But as far as that goes, I don't know, and I'm assuming this has nothing to do with, like, for example, they tried to say that immigrants were bringing disease. So I'm assuming this had nothing to do with them trying to say that about immigrants. They're bringing the rats over here with them or some crazy shit like that. And if that is what they're saying, then you know these people are ignorant as fuck, because that was largely the same thing they used to say about immigrants, including Irish immigrants and different people that came over at the turn of the 20th century. They would say, in some cases it was true, but they would say we were bringing rats over here on boats with us and so forth, and there were going to be plague, and of course none of that ever happened. And then it's like, well, you know, how do you explain that? Well, you know, better safe than sorry, or some dumb shit. But that's a kind of racism, and it's xenophobia. It's let's blame the outsider, let's blame the people coming in. I mean, that's what that is. All right, let's see what else. Tulsi Gabbard. I can't say that name, but I'm not saying it correct. I never heard of it. But oh yeah, Tulsi Gabbard, supposedly she's complaining about she was supposedly complaining about Google interfering with her campaign. I guess she was running. I guess she's running to be president. And I still don't know that much about her, but I will look more into her now after this. I was thinking about doing that anyways. I never really got around to it. I have a lot of stuff that I look at and taking and have to worry about already. But I know she is anti-war. They're trying to say she's essentially anti-war. Even some of the conservatives who are thinking that we have spent too much money on wars and they're non-interventionists, even they support her. So maybe I'll look at her, or I'll look more into her. But she's saying Google interfered with her campaign. I have no idea if that's true or not, but that should be interesting to see what happens there. So let's see. Women in America, I'm guessing this is all women, not just white women. I mean, I'm not really sure, but women in America are having fewer babies than ever before. And so I guess that means what? The environment might improve, less, less fucking destruction of the fucking environment. So the environment, the air, and the atmosphere might improve, and there's going to be less genital mutilation, or you're going to mutilate your children's genitals less because there's less children. I mean, what does that mean? American women are having less children. Good. I approve. Yeah, this is I guess woman tested and Satan approved. Sounds good to me. All right. House infighting. House. Oh yeah, I don't agree with Cortez, or I'm not sure what position who's taking on this, but I do think that some friendly competition between the same camp or among some friendly competition among the same team is not a negative. I think it's good to see some competition. I think it's time that the Democratic Party does try to take another look at itself and really reconsider what it's saying and what they believe, and try to come up with a better ideology or attempt to come to better conclusions. And I think the part of the problem really rather is that we have had this kind of old school mentality that you're starting to see some Democratic politicians actually attempt to change, and I think that's a good thing. So, but I would like for them to change. And you can say, well, the Republicans don't infight. Well, there has been infighting. Ron Paul helped bring some of that into place. Trump was saying things different from what they're saying. Some were against the Iraq War, some are for the Iraq War. Mitt Romney is still one of those old guard neocons, neoconservatives. He was doing that. He's still doing that. You have people like a Trump or like Ron Paul, especially, who are anti-war. They did do some infighting and competing among themselves, and look how much better their party has become and how much more they're winning compared to what they used to be. And look how we have declined and we're losing more. We have too much of this Borg-like mentality that goes against and is almost contrary, almost anti, not only contrary to the nature of liberalism, it's almost anti-liberal. Liberalism and liberals are supposed to be about crushing and competing and having competing views and coming to better conclusions. We come to different and better conclusions, and more than one person can be in the Democratic Party or can be a liberal and have more than one different view at a time than one another or each other. And that's supposed to be what a liberal is. Okay, what is this? Anti-Semitism. Oh yeah, editor for CNN was accused of anti-Semitism and has resigned, supposedly. Let's see. My opinion on that is that obviously I don't support anti-Semitism. I don't want anyone to accuse me of being anti-Semitic. I'm not in any way. I went into detail talking about that. I will say, with CNN being the way that they are, they tend to be more than happy to censor other people, and they promote propaganda all the time. But at the same time, I have to wonder how much of that is not saying he had viewpoints critical of Israel. Is he really anti-Jewish? That's to say, does he not like Jewish people or Jewish people, or does he just have not like something about the Israeli government? What was his viewpoint really, and what was he really saying or talking about? Because I think you know my view on that, and I think that Israel should be questioned. That's like I think American government should be questioned. You're not right all the time. And there have been times when the Israel government was wrong. And I think there are times when when the American government is wrong. I think the American government gets it wrong a lot. And I myself can only talk about myself personally, not that person that I don't know anything about, but me personally, I think that I have been more than critical of the American government. I have talked more about my government than I have any other government on the planet. So of course I'm not going to defend everything Israel does either. If I came to defend my country, why would I theirs? So there's that. What else? Let's see. Mainstream news hosts, are they covering up pedophilia? I'm guessing this has to do with the issue concerning Epstein or whatever his name was. And here is the thing, the way that I feel about it. I feel very much like Stanhope has talked about. A lot of it's fear and consumption, is marketing. And this was a right-wing talk show podcast. And it seems to me as if though, or it seems to me to be an attempt at trying to get cheap ratings, and then he markets and sells stuff. And I'm not going to talk about who, I think you know. And again, he has a smaller market now, and he probably needs the money. But the point is, a lot of that's just paranoia and propaganda. I don't think there are that many pedophiles out there. There's very few people like that out there. And I think they use it to fear. It's a campaign of fear and consumption. Now, then again, I'm talking largely about poor people, especially poor men. I think, men get this fucking. First of all, we get this negative stigma or this kind of stereotype of us all being perverts. Now, usually it wouldn't go this far. But there's also a side to that, or a bit of a tinted shade of pedophilia to that. Oh, you're predatory, men are predators, men prey upon women, and I don't think that's true. But with that said, I'm talking largely about poor people here, with the middle class and poor. Obviously, you have to keep that in mind. And I'm not sure what in the fuck rich people do, and they do seem to be weird as fuck. And who knows, maybe they are swearing kids, who knows. But I'm talking certainly, of course, about poor people. I don't think that there's a lot of pedophilia. I don't think it's some epidemic. I mean, I don't buy that. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, the UK had to tell women not to be putting iced lollies. I'm not sure what that is, but I guess it's like a popsicle. Don't be putting popsicles in your vagina or something. I found that to be strangely kind of funny. Oh yeah, they accused supposedly a father was beating up foreign man, quote unquote, somewhere in France. I guess on pools, at public pools. And I'm not saying if he did it or he didn't do it. I don't know anything about the issue. But let's be honest. When you say foreign men, that's racist code word. I mean, they're using a racist code word there. They meant probably Muslims, I guess, because this is French. Here it might be Hispanic people. There it's probably Islamic people, or perhaps even either Arab or African or someone from that background. So it's a bit racist. But beyond that, whoever he was beating up, I don't think you can just run up to someone and start go around beating up people because they're accused of something. That's not the legal way of doing it. You have to file a complaint, you kill the cops, and he gets a trial. And if he did it, he gets punished. I mean, that's the way that works. And also, they've had cases before where they do this, where the guy turns out to be innocent. And if this guy turned out to be innocent, does the man now apologize to him for kicking his ass after he was accused of something he didn't do? If they admit that, oh yeah, he didn't do that. So that's bullshit. Oh yeah, feminists also somewhere in Europe called it art. She started taking off her clothes for some reason in front of children. That was a bit weird. But I have to say, Europe is like that. They have a different standard for art. I mean, a lot of your postmodern art and shit comes from Europe. I don't understand it, and I've actually call me crazy, but I found it a bit funny, honestly. But that was odd, bizarre to say the least. But that's what they do. And also, wouldn't you be against nude beaches because they have kids on nude beaches, and now you're going to tell families that you can't go to a nude beach or you can't be a nudist? I mean, and to them, that's not sexual. That may be sexual to you, but that's their lifestyle, So I just find it odd. Once again, the "don't tread on me" people are doing everything they can, and everything in their power to tread on everyone else, and that's really what they mean. Don't tread on me. So that's bullshit. There was a school somewhere that got in trouble for giving children estrogen after the parents did not consent. But at the same time, if you really are a transgender person and these children really were transgender, it could be very important for them to take that estrogen, because some people who are transgender end up committing suicide. They kill themselves if they don't get to transition, because they're not men. They're not being part of the gender they are. They should be able to transition, even if in some cases for whatever reason the parents don't want them to. Hey, they maybe they're religious lunatics, whatever else. Like I said, I don't think your religion. I've said this about circumcision. I don't think your religion should be allowed to be forced on children. So if a transgender child is transgender, then they should be transgender. I mean, that's it. That's about all I got to talk about. There was other shit. This video went too long, so 666.